And here we go. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now and the National Hockey Now YouTube channel. So you can tell I'm in the fabulous. Do I say what hotel I'm in? Yeah, what the heck? I'm in the lovely airport La Quinta in Raleigh, North Carolina. The sun is like right behind me. It's really a nice day here, kind of cloudy, but it's like 79 degrees here. And we're going to a hockey game tonight. So a lot of talk about regarding the Penguins. And, I suppose we're the first on it. Whenever we're on something, I know tomorrow every blog and every blog is going to kind of pick up on what we laid down today. Kyle Dubas didn't take the team charter on Wednesday from New York to Raleigh. Instead, he went to JFK to hop a plane to D.C. to check out the Predators and Washington Capitals. Reasons, of course, not announced. They don't give that up. It would be very rare for a GM to go do some pre-scouting, right? That would be very awkward. They have people for that. So we can open the door a little bit on some trade chatter, especially because Nashville Predators GM Barry Trotz has already flung open that door saying they're trying to do some things. Well, when an opposing GM shows up at your game when you're trying to do some things, I think that's fair game without being too irresponsible. And I think Nashville and the Penguins actually make very good trade partners. So we'll get into that just a little bit. Of course, we also have to talk about these blown leads. 2 years running, the Penguins have been a bottom 3 team. Well, actually, they bottom 3 or bottom 5, regardless. Over the last couple of years, really only Calgary and San Jose have been worse than the Penguins in terms of gagging away, coughing away, punting away, throwing away lead after lead after lead. What makes the Penguins' recent play so distressing? 4 times in 8 games, they've given away a multi-goal lead. That shouldn't happen. I don't really know. I'm still learning this whole StreamYard thing, which is how we get the podcast and how we get the video to both Facebook and to YouTube. Howdy, peoples, simultaneously. Because I asked Sullivan yesterday, and bear in mind, when I ask you to join Pittsburgh Hockey Now Plus, like PHN Plus, it is because some of these trips get pretty expensive and it gets rough. Pittsburgh Hockey Now is one of only 2 outlets to be present for the Islanders portion of this trip. So, I hope when I say, hey, we're busting our butts and we're spending our resources to be there, that I'm serious and I'm not just, shaking the can needlessly. So I asked Sullivan yesterday after the Penguins had a practice at UBS Arena the day after the game, what is it with these leads? Is it a mental construct that you need to work on? I asked Marcus Pettersson and Ryan Graves the exact same question. And Pettersson, Dragon, really gave me, I think, a long and thought out answer. And I'll be getting to that because I'm sure that's not the last lead the Penguins are going to cough away. You know what I'm saying? So it's a long story to write. I could take the cheap way out and just print their quotes and say, here's what the Penguins said. But I really think I need to talk with Coach Francis Anzalone, who's been doing the coaches debrief videos. And I need to, really settle in or sink my teeth into it. So that's where we stand with that portion of the locker room. But to kind of, do you want to start with the trade rumors, or should we start with the blown leads? Let's start with the blown leads because I think that sets the stage very well for the trade discussions and the trade talk. Because before you can do that, I think you have to establish a firm base of what in the world the team needs. So let's talk about the blown leads. And both Pettersson and Sullivan brought up an interesting point. that each game is different. They've done it in very different sort of ways. Sullivan noted the power play goal against the Islanders, which, that was Holmstrom. Puck comes down, Pettersson goes flat, Nedeljkovic can't. It was a mess. Holmstrom roofs the rebound. Now it's 3-2 in the third period. The problem is, after it becomes 3-2, it's, there's 7 minutes left, 5 minutes left. J.G. Pageau just gets wide open in the slot. I wonder if I can pull up that goal and we can watch it together. And I can show you just how terrible the Penguins' zone coverage was on that goal. Matt Grzelcyk was kind of puck watching. He got caught in no man's land. As the river is flowing to the mid wall, he's watching the puck and doesn't take away the passing lane. That's one mistake. The next mistake is Pageau, how should I phrase this? Evgeny Malkin had proper coverage on Pageau. So while that passing lane is wide open, Pageau steps past Malkin, who literally breaks his stick on Pageau, just, trying to disrupt, the quick play they've got set up there. All of a sudden, the Penguins had 5 guys in the box. 5 guys between the dots, exactly what you want. As a coach, you're like, we've got this covered. And a moment later, Pageau's getting a clean rip from 20 feet. Good Lord. That's the stuff that absolutely can't happen. And it does to every team. But it happens to the Penguins all the time. 4 times in 8 games. That's the stuff that... and so I know where a lot of you are coming from, because it has been hockey dogma since the Montreal Canadiens were playing in black and white on little 12-inch TV screens across Canada. It's been dogma since then, with the chicken wire fencing, or even no chicken wire fencing around the boards, and the spectators were leaning over there. God help them. I'm sure if you went home with a wired jaw. Regardless, it's always been hockey dogma. You get a couple goal lead, you trap, you defense, you go into that defensive shell, you smother the other team, game, set, and match. It doesn't work anymore, unfortunately. And I'm not criticizing anybody who would say that to me or believe that. What I am saying is the way the game is going, the players are so ridiculously fast and skilled now. They will carve up a defensive shell like a Thanksgiving turkey. It's just the truth. That, if you go into that defensive shell, the 1-4, if you want to call it a trap, whatever it might be, even a backward feeling, like on your heels 1-2-2, you're going to get beat up. You're going to lose as many games as you win, which is kind of where the Penguins are now anyway. They really do have to figure out that mental construct of how to play with a lead to keep on their toes, to remain aggressive but smart aggressive. Alex Nedeljkovic, kind of gave me an interesting answer. Dear Lord, I don't know which game. It's within the last week anyway. I think it was after the Anaheim win, maybe after Montreal, about the Penguins making better decisions. And really what he described were the Penguins' top 2 defensemen in terms of making good decisions at the offensive blue line, not shooting the puck into shin pads, like an obvious shot block, and you're just letting it rip anyway. Erik Karlsson, I think, is notorious for that sort of move, and the offensive, and the blue line turnovers and those sorts of things, which put additional pressure on the goalie. That was Nedeljkovic's very polite way of saying we didn't stink tonight. We didn't make a bunch of dumb mistakes. But I really did appreciate kind of the specificity that he brought to the conversation. They didn't do that against the Islanders. They didn't make those dumb mistakes against the Islanders, which lends credence to its different mistakes every time. Against the Islanders, they all just got puck-watching, flat-footed, kind of just slobbering on themselves like they'd had a few beers or plenty. They just were all like, oh boy, that was bad. And I don't know that there is a solution with the current roster. I honestly don't, because you have so many guys who aren't good defensively. You can't buy a minivan and hope to win a NASCAR race. Conversely, you're not going to take, a Ferrari and go off-roading with it. The Penguins, I think, need a little bit more. Well, actually, they need a bit more offense, and they need a bit more shut-down defense, especially on their blue line. Okay, so that's the Mike Sullivan, I think, portion of it. I've taken 10 minutes to get through that. Hopefully, not everyone ran away screaming or is, Dan loves Mike Sullivan. Clearly, the coach has some responsibility here. He's not working with a whole lot of raw material in terms of a defensive game, but the coach really does. I think Sullivan has tried everything in terms of the forward group. Now I think he probably should turn his attention to the defensive side of things. There's not much more he can do with the forwards. They are what they are. In fact, let me make a note here. Forwards, lines, changes. We'll dive into that. Let's talk about the defenseman, Sullivan. I know a lot of you want to see people punished. I don't think that's a bad idea. If they, honest to goodness, one more time. I know as a parent you say that how many times? One more time. Like 8 times later, you're like, ah, to heck with it. But Sullivan really does, I think, have to turn that same winds of change that he's brought to the forwards and bring that to the defensemen. And if that means not playing Erik Karlsson in the final 7 or 8 minutes of a game, so be it. That means, if Chris Letang is scuffling that night, not playing him in the final 5 minutes, he would get that message loud and clear and be angry about it and probably go on a tear like you wouldn't believe. But it's about sending a message to somebody here sooner than later. You can't. What was the math? They got a point against Calgary and they got a point against the Islanders. So they didn't squander the full 2 points. But the other 2 games, well, they won 1. So they lost one of the games and they tied in 2. So that's 4 points they've squandered. If you give them 3 of those 4 points, the season has a radically different feel, doesn't it? Instead of 5, 7, and 2, now they're what? 7, 4, and 7, 5, and 1? 7, 4, and 1? Let me do the math right. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. I'm going to let you do the math. Yeah, if they flip 2 wins, yeah, they have 7. Yeah, so let's call it 7, 3, and 3. I don't know. Let's get to some of the comments here before I dive into the Penguins trade talk. It was kind of a funny situation or situation at the airport yesterday, and I'll tell you about that. Parksy, first live chat I've been able to make in 3 to 4 weeks. Thank you for hopping on. Pens ML, what's up? Brady Shea to Pittsburgh? No. You're not getting Brady Shea. I think I tweeted at somebody. Listen, when you're shopping at Gabe's, you don't get first run Ralph Lauren. Okay? You're looking at the clearance rack at Gabe's, which is where the Penguins situation is. And in fact, perhaps I should begin. So I was talking to a couple sports writers around the country, a couple guys who cover some other teams. I've been sort of fishing through rosters and lineups looking for players who could fortify the Penguins' middle six, add some scoring punch. I think a second-line center would go miles with this team. But you're not getting a $6 or $8 million second-line center at the top of his game. You're just not getting there. So what poor man's second-line center can be out there? And so without giving away the column I'll probably do tomorrow, maybe, I've got a 6-hour train ride tomorrow. I'm kind of done with airports for a while. So I'm taking the train from Raleigh to DC. And the text I got back was, the Penguins are in buy mode, ? When are they going to realize it's over? And that kind of dovetails with what a lot of you react, your emote. However, you have to kind of realize that they're still playing the games. They can't fast forward 3 years. The Penguins can't rebuild right now. They can't. Not possible. It's not like a casual choice or even a serious choice. It's a can't choice. And so what do you do in that gap between now and when you really can get more serious about rebuilding and bringing in a lot of new blood? Well, you get stopgaps. Stopgap center, stopgap winger who can provide a little bit of what you want on your budget, who's not going to eat up long-term contract. I was chuckling to myself in the story that I wrote. Let me see if I can share the screen here. About Kyle Dubas scouting the Predators Capitals game last night. And here's that story. Let me get there. Okay. All right. And now we're going to share this screen so you're not staring at me anymore. Okay. Cue the Penguins trade rumors. I'll tell you the airport story in a few more minutes. I kind of don't know if I should, but the reality is it happened. And so I didn't do anything wrong for once. Everybody was like, no, I don't want, because I mentioned 3 players in this story. I mentioned Luke Shen, a big stay-at-home right-side defenseman. He's 36. I mentioned Gustav Nyquist, Gus, who's 35. Had a career year last year, by the way. I don't think people realize he poured in 75 points last year. Career high, 23 goals, 75 points. And, there's, who else did I mention? I mentioned they've got Jeremy Lazon, 27, makes $2 million a year. This is the kind of stuff that is in the Penguins' wheelhouse. Lausen, forgive me, I'm terrible with name pronunciations. I make Don Cherry look good at that. The Penguins, Nashville has both a couple of forwards who are ready to break into the NHL lineup, and Barry Trotz said it specifically in a radio interview this week that he's trying to do some things. If they don't start turning it around immediately, then he's going to, do some things to get some kids into the lineup. Well, one of those kids, they've got some young defensemen who are knocking on the door, but also their 2022 first-round pick is a forward who's putting up a point per game in the AHL. 2/3 of a point last year. This year, he's off to a point per game start. When your 2022 first-round pick, 17th overall, comes due, you put him in the lineup. So Nashville could probably deal a defenseman or a forward. Nyquist is a guy that I would circle very quickly. Yeah, he's 35. He makes all of $3.125 million. So the Penguins would have to send some salary out, but that's not a whole lot. That can be worked with. It's not like it's $7 or $8 million. And Nyquist can play center. He can play the right wing. He probably can play the left wing. I think he is left-handed. So I like that very much. But here, let me jump on Twitter and the reactions I'm getting. No, they can't get older. You have to think this is not a 3-year contract. This is a 6-month contract. They're going to take on a player who's 35. What? I think that some of you have a mental block. What is it that a player's age makes them not as good as a player who's 25? Huh? What? That just boggles my mind. Oh, well, we don't want him. He's 35. You're not going to build around the guy. You're getting him as a stopgap. And that's where the Penguins are in this big picture context of a rebuild. You're looking for cheap veterans who can give you some help for a very short period of time. That does kind of drive me nuts. I don't want any part of a 35-year-old guy. I got news for you. Teams aren't giving up the 25-year-old guy. Oh, sure, let's just go down to the player store and we'll just get the 25-year-old guy. Yeah, we'll spend a little extra and it's not happening. They're not giving him up. He's not for sale. People were like, I want Philip Tomasino. You can want all you want. People in hell want ice water. So, okay. I really do think the Penguins and Nashville kind of make a good trade partners there. First of all, Dubas has some extra draft picks. I know he'd like to hold on to everything. He and I might disagree here. I don't think Dubas can sit on his hands for the next couple of years. Last year, he basically left the team high and dry until the trade deadline when it was time to trade Jake Gensel. He said he didn't like any of the shake-up trade options. I obviously don't know who he was on the phone with, what his offers were, so I can't judge that statement with any accuracy. I do feel like there was so much warranted last year that didn't happen. And you just can't sit on your thumbs for this season again and credibly say to fans and Sidney Crosby that you're trying to win. As nice as I think Anthony Beauvillier or Kevin Hayes or Cody Glass might be, when those are your additions, you're taking a step down. And then when you're not adding more as needed, taking another step down. Players notice this stuff. Even if they don't front brain the situation, they back brain it, and it begins to feel you lose just a little bit of the edge. So I think Dubas has to do something. If you're going to put Crosby and Malkin on a line together, which wholly endorse, the Penguins are now 16-4-1 after the shootout loss to the Islanders in their last 21 games when they put those two together. When they start those two together. That stat courtesy of Grover, Bob Grove. So it's producing results, but it's also concentrating the team on entirely one line. As much as I like Lars Eller and Drew O'Connor, and Cody Glass is becoming sort of an analytics darling, no matter what line he's on, I don't know if you've looked this up, go ahead. No matter what line Cody Glass is on, that line has a big scoring chance and high danger scoring chance advantage. I think they had a 5-1 high danger chance advantage on Tuesday. I had to look at what day it was today and then count back to. Such as the life. But the line's not scoring either. When Sidney Crosby scored the first goal Tuesday, he had scored 5 of the Penguins' last 6 goals. Who gets the next one? Evgeny Malkin, albeit a power play goal. They need additional scoring, primarily second line scoring, but I'll lower the bar a little bit and say middle 6 scoring. I think somebody who could be an offensive second line center, thus allowing Sullivan to keep Malkin beside Crosby. Those two are having fun. And that can't be understated. Those two are actually having some real fun playing together. Ricard Raquel, look at how he's playing. He's playing really good hockey lately. The issue becomes that it's not trickling down to the rest of the team. It really is top heavy. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Let's see here. Hey, Parksy, I appreciate your appreciate the coverage, boss man. You don't have to call me boss. I always get a little bit weird. All right, let's get to some questions here, and I'll kind of circle around. I'll make a note to tell the Dubas airport story. Poor Dubas. Here he thinks he's going to the airport in peace and quiet and private, and no one's going to know who he is. And by the way, no one did know who he is. He walked through the airport and not a soul stopped him. But he did see me. Matt Grzelcyk was a terrible signing. Why would you sign a worse version of Chris Letang than tell them to play together? It's a little harsh. Grzelcyk has been struggling the last, handful. I thought he was really good, solid, steady the first handful, 7 games. And then the last handful, 7 games, he has regressed. And I think that's part of the problem. I was a PO guy, a PO Joseph guy. I always thought that he got a little bit short shrifted in Pittsburgh. He wasn't Mike Sullivan's cup of tea as a player, personally. I mean, everyone loved P.O. Joseph. But, those last 20 games he played with Chris Letang, I thought he was really good. And something happened. Lord knows what, because Kyle Dubas said a few weeks prior to the qualifying deadline, which was June 30th, yeah, I think he said we expect to or we are going to qualify P.O. And then they didn't. What that was about never did get a clear story. Grzelcyk is not playing as well as P.O. did in those last 20 games last season. And I have to agree, it does put the Penguins' defense in a little bit of a pickle, which is why I like Nashville as a trade partner. Although I circled Luke Schenn, who's a right side guy, Lazon is a left side guy. Makes $2 million. He's 27. He's a bit of a heavy defenseman. I think it would cost the Penguins something. You're not getting him for free, but I think it might be worth it to get there. But why do you put him with Letang? Because otherwise you're putting him with Carlson. That another Penguins problem there. Yeah, talking about that that goal. Let me see if I can get it here. Let me see if. Although I have to be careful because if I play more than like 13 seconds, I don't get paid for the video, and that's no fun. Maybe I can screenshot it here. Hang on. No, stop. I don't. No. Okay. The sound is going to be a problem. We're just not going to do it. Anyway, yes, there was a gap about 10 feet between Malkin and Grzelcyk. The Grzelcyk should have cut under. Malkin should have been with Pajot. One of the two should have been there, at least making a better attempt so that Pajot doesn't really get a good rip that he did. Michael, how are you? Gaming Oddity. Hey, Dan, is Sully's system not right for our roster, or has he lost the room? What is the Penguins' issue? I can raise my chair. Look at that. Actually, you know what? I have become a fan of the La Quinta rooms. I've got like this desk. I've got a recliner over here. I've just got like a basic room. It's kind of nice. Quite comfy. The TV is like 24 inches. Yeah. Kinda tough to see through. I wear my glasses. I'm really winding, aren't I? What's is Sully's system not right for the roster? This, I think, is the most misunderstood part of the Penguins fan base. Mike Sullivan's system of 2024 does not resemble the system of 2020, or I mean, of 2017, let's say. And I know a lot of people say that it is, and it's just not. If you look at how the Penguins are trying to play, and Francis Anzalone explained this really well in the first coach's debrief. Francis's first video was a bit long, a bit drawn out. You know, it for the casual fan, it could be a little tedious because Francis was just packing so much information into it. But he really, I probably should tell him to break it out and do it again, in a very succinct 5-minute clip. He's having fun with doing those videos, by the way. So if anything you want to have him take a look at, or something you want him to examine, or a question you've got, by all means, fire those away. Francis is, he's a hockey coach, and he's running a pretty prestigious hockey school, but he grew up kind of as a broadcaster. That's how I met Francis. His father was coaching in the ECHL where I was, and he used to climb the rafters and set up his own little broadcast booth and do play-by-play of the games as a kid and as a teenager. So he knows what he's doing, and he kind of missed the broadcast feel and all of that. I digress. They've become a short or a small area team now, and what that means, and you will see it on display tonight against Carolina if they execute it well. What that means really is you're seeing less on the rush. They can't out transition a team anymore. They can't, make that play and have a jailbreak of 3 or 4 guys who are faster than the opposition. The opposition can catch them. Let's be completely honest. In part because of the evolution of the game, and in part because they're old. So it becomes putting the puck behind defensemen, putting the puck into open space behind the defenseman. Get it. Maybe, get a little rough in the corner, but control the good ice, both there along the wall, but also getting some good ice in the slot, getting some good ice near the net, making those little plays, having the second and third stick so that you can get around the defender tick tack and be in the scoring zone. All that little stuff that Sidney Crosby is extraordinary at. And I think Evgeny Malkin is really starting to adapt and figure out how to play that small area game with Crosby. Just watch the little passes they make. They're sick how they can spring each other. There's like 4 guys in a 5-by-5 space, and somehow one of those guys pops open with the puck. It's just that's a bit of the offensive strategy. But the defensive strategy, the track backs and those sorts of things, that's where Sullivan might be falling down. He's kind of damned if he does, damned if he doesn't on this part. And I'm gonna concede part of your point, Oddity, because Sullivan's defensive strategy, without going full on X's and O's here, because this also will be released via podcast, no pucks given, um, is a presence defensive structure where everyone's kind of supposed to take a guy in an area, but it might not be the same next time up the ice. It's very fluid, and it requires some reading and adaptation, which has obviously been a problem for the Penguins. And you say, well, then simplify it. The simplification of that is a positional defense. You race back the defensive zone, and this is your spot. And that sounds, man, tell them to do that. and get mad at the players and correct the players who don't go to the right spot. And I will go back to that Pajot video or the Pajot goal as a prime example. The Penguins were all on the right spot, and they still fell down, allowing a glorious scoring opportunity that came the tying goal. So I don't know quite what the answer is there. There really isn't an answer. The presence defense allows guys like Sidney Crosby and Malkin and Letang, even Carlson, to read the play, to react, and to do the things that only they can do. And if you go to the positional defense, you gotta take the stick out of their hands a bit. You're not gonna get those plays. You're not gonna get those odd man breaks. You're not gonna get those guys on their toes, which could translate negatively to the offensive game. So there's a lot of push and pull in that decision, which ultimately I don't think is going to be a proper answer. I don't think you're going to get the right answer either way, unless you have better defensive players. That really is kind of what it comes down to. So, no, Mike Sullivan has indeed not lost the Penguins' room. The Penguins' room is an older room, though. You can and think about it this way. Let's say they hire a new coach and everyone gets on their toes for a couple of weeks, like it always happens. But that coach is not going to be able to walk into the room, flip a table, and say, "Gino, play defense." I mean, come on. That's the limitation of anybody who's going to coach the Penguins. What Sullivan did 8 years ago, 9 years ago in 2017 can't be replicated because the guys are older now. You try to get in a 38-year-old's face, a 38-year-old with these accomplishments and milestones and Stanley Cup rings, 37-year-old's face. It, that's how you lose a team, is by overplaying your hand. And so it's a tough situation. I don't necessarily know if there is a way out without more changes. I don't think there is. I genuinely don't. That's why I wrote last week that Kyle Dubas, actually maybe not even early this week, it all runs together. But with the Crosby-Malkin combination being very successful, as it is, on Kyle Dubas to do something to fortify the rest of the lineup. Like I said, Hayes and Glass and Bavillier, they're nice additions, but they're not gonna be they're not second line scorers that will allow the team to be successful and allow them to keep Malkin and Crosby. Ryan, late to the party. That's all right. Maybe they are just what we thought they were. Average, aging, middling team. I suppose there's something to that. Look at the results. But how do they keep getting leads on these teams? If they were just average, they wouldn't be blowing these leads. The problem that they're feeling, that I'm analyzing, is that wild swing between good team and bad team within the same period, within the same game. So I still believe this, that the Penguins roster is a lot better than what a lot of people think it is. It's not great. I mean, they're not a Stanley Cup team. Don't misunderstand me there. But I think they're a better team this year than they were last year. I just they have to solve this defensive crisis, and it's just about to a crisis point, even 14 games into the season. So if they don't solve it, they are indeed getting a high lottery pick, and they will kick themselves over all of the wins they could have had. What would 5 extra wins have meant last year? You might say, "Oh, they would have gotten dumped in the first round of the playoffs." Well, you don't know that for one, but two, even if that were true, what 5 extra wins last year would have meant, let's see here, about $10 million. And if you don't think FSG counts the dollars, I've got news for you. They will invest in things, but they want returns too. So, what would they have done with $10 million? What could they do with $10 million? I'll let you ponder that. Or what they might do next year if they didn't get the 10. That might be a more prescient question. Would they let Kyle Dubas take on Kevin Hayes and Cody Glass if they're not making enough money? It's a fair point, isn't it? Let me pull the curtain here. I saw the sun starting to in. Let's get to Michael's question here. When Jari comes back, do you see him taking over, or will it still be Ned's net? I did ask that question yesterday. I knew this was coming, and I know, I think, is it tomorrow night or Saturday is Jari's last rehab start. I'll get to the answer here. Or if Blomqvist, sorry, I read it. Or if Blomqvist starts to play better, then Ned will get no. Nedeljkovic is not getting sent down. No, 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 no. Here's how this is going to play out, and I think it's preordained. So I think Dubas referenced this in his last GM's show with Josh. When Jari comes back, Blomqvist goes down. That doesn't mean that Jari takes over the starter's net, however. That's an important point, okay? I This is maybe where it becomes opinion, and we'll see how Sullivan does it. I'm pretty sure that Mike Sullivan is going to give Tristan Jari a start very soon after coming up. And how Jari performs in that start is going to be very crucial. I mean, I assume Blomqvist is going to play against the Capitals on Friday. Then again, they probably could call up Tristan Jari to start against the Capitals Friday, but I don't think that's going to happen. And then we go into next week's schedule, and I haven't even looked at it yet, so I don't know if I don't think there's any back-to-back games next week. But Jari will have to wrestle the net from Nedeljkovic. I think Sullivan likes that arrangement. I think they want Jari to be hungry, maybe a bit angry, and focused on that rather than thinking about everything. I think they want him kind of thinking and focused on getting better and taking that net, competition of it. So I think Sullivan is going to go out of his way, probably. That's why I asked yesterday. I'm just setting the stage for the next question we ask about the goaltenders, which will include Tristan Jari. I think Sullivan has shown no hesitation to go to Nedeljkovic. I think Nedeljkovic is actually quite well, to the point where he could be considered, a wonderfully average number one goalie, which is a pretty good spot in the National Hockey League these days. And that's where we're going to stay. We're going to have Nedeljkovic really holding the net until Jari takes it, or until the Penguins send Jari to the AHL because he didn't take it. They bring back Blomqvist. That's how that's going to go. Why do they have to wait 3 years to rebuild? I assume you mean rebuild. Salary issues? Well, yeah, I guess in part, but look at all the contracts. They can't dismantle the team because you have like 4 or 5 players with trade value, and they all got no movement clauses. And they're the players you're not going to trade anyway. Then you've got a couple guys. I think next summer, Brian Rust becomes a trade candidate if they miss the playoffs. I think Marcus Pettersson is probably a trade candidate now. And then what? Like who else are you gonna trade? And put down your Xbox controller and really think about it real world style. And they just can't. You have to wait for some of these contracts to expire. That's when they get to rebuild. When these contracts expire. That's why 3 years. Pens need a defensive D man, but I bet they trade for a forward. Well, BJ, thanks BJ for the question or statement. They need both. No question about it. You need both. So if they trade for a forward, don't get all, boo boo face, stomp your feet, and hate that player because they genuinely need both. Gary Anderson. Good afternoon, Dan. I read your article about the possible trades. Pens with Reds. Yikes. No thanks. Here comes Gary. Gonna team me up again. 35-year-old Nyquist, slow and plodding Shen. The only guy worth anything is Lazon. How many GMs have won with Luke Shen? Several. Y'all kind of drive me nuts with this. Oh, he's slow. He's a stay-at-home guy. Yeah, he is. Imagine him in the third period. He's not going to be puck watching. He's going to be clearing the crease. He's going to be taking his man. He's going to be doing the things that you need to do to win. And what is the problem with, Nyquist 35? He must stink, right? Y'all need to put away the birth certificate. Unless the Penguins are talking about signing somebody to a multi-year contract, it doesn't matter how old they are. I think too many people assume, he's younger, he's better. I don't know how to deconstruct that. That logic just seems to be impenetrable within the fan base at large, and it's leading a lot of you astray to not see some players who could, in fact, help. Gary has a follow-up question. What does Nyquist really change? Are they a playoff team with him? Look, well, let's pull on that thread. It's a good question. I know you're kind of asking it, kind of as an argumentative point, but if you keep Crosby and Malkin together, is not adding a 50 to 70 point scorer on your second line. Let's just say they put Nyquist in the middle. Now your second line becomes O'Connor, Nyquist, and Rust. And then your third line is Lars Eller and Puljujärvi, or Lars Eller and Glass. They become a much deeper team if they can get somebody with some second line chops. Absolutely. So are they a playoff team? I don't know, but I can tell you this: they're not a playoff team without somebody, and it probably wouldn't cost them a whole heck of a lot. Going for a second line center, asks JR, be better than going for a defensive defenseman. If I had to pick one or the other, that's a really good question. I probably, maybe I'm showing my layman's stripes here. I would probably go for the center, be a second line guy, or even a winger who could be a second line guy who can actually put the puck in the net. Over a defensive defenseman. Yeah, boy, that's a neck and neck race there. I would probably lean towards the center if all other things were equal. Gary comes back here. Pens need some legit defensive defensemen. Yeah. I wouldn't say they have zero legit defensive defensemen. Marcus Pettersson is there. There's been Pettersson had a slow start this year, and I think the angst over the team in general kind of got dumped a bit on Pettersson. Not sure why. He's been just fine. Black Swan. Hey, do you think it is possible to make playoff with this team? Well, Black Swan, the playoff with this team. They're on the outside looking in. Possible? Yes. Probable? No. I think that's the problem. They can't rebuild. They can't add big names. So what do you do? I think they do owe Sidney Crosby a little bit of a debt. I mean, come on, 8.7 million bucks. Good lord. Give the guy some toys to play with. Nick, from now on, every mistake I make will be followed with, "Wow, I really back-brained that one." Yeah, I've menangled a few syllables in my day. I think, not, what do they call it? Sportsnet Pittsburgh. I think they saved my bacon, um, on Tuesday night. I don't think any of you got to see the absolutely menangled question that I asked Nedeljkovic. I was talking with, Rickard Rakell. Literally, it's chaos when the game goes to overtime and a shootout. Because I mean, I have to write the story and file it at the Horn, so I can get into the locker room. And so the other writer and I, there's only 2 of us on the trip or on the Long Island part of the trip. We're literally sitting in a hallway outside the Penguins locker room, trying to write as garbage cans are being wheeled past. We're watching the game on this computer monitor, courtesy of Sportsnet Pittsburgh, yeah, and it's just kind of an awful little situation. So I miss details in the final couple minutes of the game sometimes. It's truly because a lot of arenas are really cutting back on media accommodations, and we're making do with whatever we can, uh, get. So I go running into the room, talk to Pedersen for a moment. We're to talk to Raquel about the blown lead and what might have gone on. And because there's no one else in the locker room really, Nedeljkovic begins holding his little media availability. He always goes last. He only goes last. So I kind of give Rax the tap, like, okay, gotta wrap this up. And I go running over and in the process of just all this chaos, I forget who scores the goal. Or I completely just mix them all up. And I was meaning to ask him, even now I've got them mixed up. It was actually the first one that Kyle Palmieri scored. Rebound flutters high into the air, comes down, Palmieri smacks it out of the air, foot off the ice. Letang was a bit slow getting there. Letang looked up to the ceiling, and I meant to ask Nedeljkovic about that if everyone lost sight of the big player. But I said the second goal, not the first goal. So Ned gets confused. Like, wait, do you mean the one by Holmstrom, which was also kind of an awkward rebound that Holmstrom roofed over everybody? And and then the other reporter kind of gets confused. So now we're all completely confused. And I've completely just screwed up the entire thing. And he's like, and he and I laughed about it yesterday. I'm like, you know, Alex, if you see me coming, just haul off and just smack me. Just give me a good swat. Give me away. Don't let me ask you another question. I'm not going to bother you. Good nature. He took it well. Some players might have been kind of a little salty or sarcastic, a bit of a jerk about it, but we all laughed it off. But Sportsnet actually cut. That was the last question from Nedeljkovic. Sportsnet cut that off, I think, and did not put out the video. Thank you, Sportsnet. Um, yeah, I may have also uttered a word you can't say on TV. Debatable. I didn't say one of the four-letter words, but yeah. Anyway, so what was the question on that? Uh, it was just about back-brained. Yeah, I definitely back-brained that question to Ned. No. When Rust comes back, Michael asks, Gino will be second line center again. Probably. I see that. I see that happen, but I'm not going to back off of my position that keeping Malkin with Crosby. gives you an extraordinary. And if you can acquire a second line center, well, then do it. And then you have an extraordinary line and maybe a pretty good line. That's better than two pretty good lines, right? That's my thinking. Well, I've done 55. Doesn't even feel like 55 minutes. Not of when you travel in your hotels, always hit the convenience store. You mean somewhere, grab yourself a 2 liter or a big bottle of iced tea. Get your dollar, any size fountain drink, and keep the cup. Makes life a lot easier. I also had lunch today. I stole a bagel from the free breakfast. Not stealing it because I'm entitled to it. So I had my little eggs and sausage, and I brought a bagel back to the room for lunch. Okay. No one I know. 65 and 58 are always looking to jump into the rush. Their hockey IQs are razor sharp, but their hockey bodies aren't. They don't have the wheels to get back and defend or just make them for us. I think they both get back. I think when either one of them are struggling, they make those mistakes. Like they'll get deep in the zone and try to go low to high. Like no, you don't do that. I think Carlson's bad habit that I've noticed when he's trying to do too much, when his brain leaves his body, you'll see him get to the mid wall and then press deeper and then put a shot on goal. That's no good either because where's the rebound going? The rebound's going forward while he's going the other direction. So now he's trapped himself with his own shot. And yeah, so he's spotting the other team a 30 or 40-foot head start in the transition game. And that point, a forward sees a shot, a forward's going to take a step forward, and at that point, all hell breaks loose. And that's Carlson's biggest problem. Letang's biggest problem, I think, when he's trying to do too much, is you'll see him overhandle the puck at the top of the zone, or you'll see him kind of make those backhand passes to nobody, or he'll try to go low to high with a forward in between. No, don't do that easily. Has the sound become garbled? I apologize. I am on a hotel Wi-Fi. Let me know if it hasn't improved. I don't see anybody else saying it, so I apologize if it did for a minute. That was about half an hour ago. Good Lord, I'm babbling. Let's see here. I've done just about an hour. I probably should wrap it up. A ton of questions. Good gosh. Okay, so I'm going to rapid fire these questions here. Let's see here. JR. Where are you, JR? There it is. How soon before they go full Generation X and just focus on tanking? They can't. You're not going to tank with Crosby, Malkin, Tank, Carlson, Jari, Graves, Raquel. I mean, you'd love to, wouldn't you? You'd love to just rip the Band-Aid off and try to get into that rebuild sooner, but it's just not feasible. Steven, at what point may Pickering be ready to move to the NHL? I don't know yet. I do in about a month. I have the Penguins play back-to-back. December 6th at Madison Square Garden, and then at home December 7th against Toronto. December 5th, Wilkes-Barre is at home. And I fully intend on kind of making a 3-day trip of it. So I might do Wilkes-Barre, New York, and home, giving up a night in New York City for you guys. That's how much I love you guys. I would give up a night in Manhattan to do my job. I think I've got problems. I've got real mental issues. Jari's conditioning assignment went well as well as it realistically could. I think so too. No logical reason to delay calling him up and starting him on Friday. There's probably some truth to that. Francis says they have motivational issues. I tend to agree. I don't think the fire burns as hot with everybody as it used to. Big Joe, hey Dan, it looks like they fly out of the gate and look tired by the end. Not so much physically, but mentally, not getting the puck deep enough for making the simple play. I don't think so. I mean, these guys are so well conditioned. There's really nobody on this team that struggles with conditioning. And I think, in fact, I know if Sullivan believed that conditioning were an issue, if they were tired at the end of the game, he would be derelict not to do something about it by lightening their minutes in the second period or something like that so that they are ready to go in the third. The next person on the inside that suggests that would be the first. Ron, Drew should have been benched after taking that atrocious penalty. That definitely started the downfall. I don't know. O'Connor was really good in that game. Took a bad penalty, like everybody else has, including Sidney Crosby. Aren't you people the ones who demand that players be given some latitude, especially younger players? You get mad when Sullivan has a quick hook on some of these guys. You can have it both ways. Grizzly play sucks 75% of the time. The dude is cooked. Well, he's not cooked. I think he is struggling to find his niche with the Penguins. Golden Doodles. At least if we still had POJ, there'd be more possible upside. We'd possibly be able to be traded. No one will take Grizzly. Well, I don't know about that. You have to play better, that's for sure. If we went for Nyquist, I see Puustinen being involved in the trade. That's interesting. I don't really know what Nashville would want. And that's just me being honest. I'd be a young player, and I do think Puustinen would be better served in a different sort of system. Puustinen's a poor man's Phil Kessel in a lot of ways, good and bad. And I think the Penguins trying to play smaller does not benefit him. But also, because you watch, he loses a lot of puck battles, and he's not a strong guy on the puck. I think a team that can play more on the rush, that can get him into open ice with a good rip or two, I think would benefit him. Tyson, how do you believe Crosby is perceiving everything at this? Interesting question. 8.7 million and still no help around him. Do I think he is still enjoying the competition and the grind after countless upsets and losses? I know for certain he's having some fun. Oh, he's angry about the losses. Don't misunderstand me there. But he's fully engaged. I don't. If he's angry about anything, it's about the team's performance, not about being hung out to dry or anything along those lines. Do I think Crosby is still enjoying hockey as he did, or would he ever consider a trade to a cup contender? Yes, he's enjoying it like he did when he was a kid. And no, I think he made that decision. No trades. What do I think about Frank Petrino as a trade candidate? Tyson asks. I brought him up to somebody on, was it Tuesday or Wednesday? I brought his name up. And here's a guy who's really inconsistent, prone to big hot streaks, but protracted cold streaks as well. I don't think he's what the Penguins need. That I don't think he would help them because, he might get hot and everyone's like, yeah, I mean, look, he's burned the Penguins every time he plays them. I'm surprised he doesn't, score a hat trick when he plays the Penguins. But he's not always good against everybody else. He's just one of those guys. So I was told somebody I trust, no, he's not. don't put him on the list. Is tonight's game worth attending, or will it be a blowout? If you can figure out this team, James, let me know. And let the bettors know as well. Just when you think they're going to get blown out, that's when they win every time. So I have no idea. Enter at your own risk. Or what I know it in Latin too. Estrante, abandon hope all ye who entered here. After a couple of years of Latin, I'm drawing a blank on the actual translate or the original Dante. Estrante. Gonna drive me nuts. I'm gonna look it up as soon as we're done. BJ says the Penguins haven't beaten the Canes in Carolina. How many years? It's been a couple or a few, yeah. The stat somewhere. Yeah, I mean, that. The Penguins play versus any Metro team is atrocious to watch. Pusty, Hayes, and a fourth-round pick for Nyquist. Yeah, you might have to give a little more than that, Michael. Okay, rapid fire here. We're still going. Rather than making line changes in the hopes of discovering chemistry, the Penguins should institute an offensive system during training camp. Well, William, yeah, I think your premise is a bit flawed there. Reinforcement from Wilkes-Barre when? I think Sam Poulin is kicking at the door. We'll see how much longer that lasts or when they can get him up here. I think we're coming to the point in the next handful of games in which they would start to consider that. I think some other that's the problem. I mean, Anthony Beauvillier's had some good games. He can be invisible, but he's had some good games. Cody Glass is an analytics darling. Whatever line he's on, big-time scoring chances. Kevin Hayes, he's injured. He's day-to-day as of today. But I don't know. Like, who would you waive to bring up somebody? That becomes a real conundrum. Okay, last question. Let's see here. We'll go with Michael. The power play was an issue last year. It's better now. It is. Although there were seeds of 2023 against New York when everyone got on their heels and started passing the puck around the perimeter. Now it's our defense this year. It's always something. Well, yeah, that it is. I'm going to actually take one more because I don't recall Ryan asking a question. So here's the final question. If you asked for an honest assessment of their games, what would 58 and 65 say? I believe that 65 was asked that question several games ago when he said great. I think 58 would say he's battling. He's playing, neither guy's going to tell you that they're playing badly. I think Letang would be a bit more introspective, but I've been surprised by Letang's. He's been a bit invisible, actually, hasn't he? He's been a little bit invisible, which that's never been the case. All right, kids. I'm starting to feel a little bit hoarse. I just did an hour and 10 minutes. Me and my Diet Pepsi here. So that's it for me. I appreciate y'all. This is now available in podcast form. I'm going to do a couple or a few podcasts a week, especially when I'm at home with the studio. I don't like doing it with just the laptop and no microphone, but I haven't yet figured out a good travel arrangement. The podcast will be on the website. Pretty soon it will be on the rest of the platforms, the Spotify, the Apple, blah, blah, blah. But we haven't yet submitted all of that, and people who are running the podcast haven't done all of that yet. It's coming. So in the meantime, check out Pittsburgh Hockey Now. I would love it if you joined PHN Plus. Use coupon code DAN10. Dan, number one, number zero, Dan10. Save yourself $10. But keep this little party rolling on. I really could. I'd love more of you to be on board these road trips. If nothing else, they sure as hell take a lot out of me, um, and the network certainly benefits too. So thank you all. It's been my pleasure. I will see you back here next Wednesday or Thursday, depending on the schedule, and we'll do this all again. Toodles.